Fallout 76 is a prequel to all the other games, and it's our biggest one yet. It is 4 times the size of Fallout 4. Set in the hills of West Virginia, you are one of the first to emerge into an untamed and very different wasteland. But there is one big difference with this game. It's that each of those characters is a real person.
This was the point where I lost interest in Fallout 76. To me, biggest attraction in RPG games is the moral choices you face along the way. Questions that you answer, be that by your personal or character's point of view, carry consequences with them. The introduction of other players takes those choices away. Just because you chose to go with the plan of nuking the Fisherside Prime does not mean that the nuke did any more damage to Appalachia or that Scorched Speech are no longer a threat. Same way you cannot nuke one or both Wastelanders factions just because they got on your nerves. Although, even if this were a current day single player game, every NPC would have an essential tag on them. Everything is in this MMORPG limbo, where everything happens, but nothing actually happens. For the first year after launch of 76, you could not hear about the new issues inside and outside of the game every week, and while it was fun to watch this dumpster fire from far away, one thing was sure. I would not buy this game. It did not offer anything for me. That was until one day an old friend contacted me and said that he had an extra key, and it would be fun to play together again after 10 years.
First, of course you can play this solo.
I never had interest in dailies, reputations or anything that offers you repeatable content for 1 hour a day. My plan was clear from the get-go. Complete my build and complete every side and main quest. I chose to go with the heavy weapons and power armor since I have not gone that route in Fallout 4. One evening of research and planning later, I knew that my target level was 67. I immediately noticed familiarity to those countless nights spent playing WoW rather than the RPG experience I'd been used to in older Fallout games. You see, I mod Bethesda's games like any normal person would, meaning I never play them vanilla. That combined with my no fast travel rule and the fact that single players have a lot more side quests and interesting NPCs made it so instead of teleporting to and from quest givers, I selected a direction from the compass and adventured that way till all the tasks were done in that region, and then I choose a new one. There would always be something new and interesting to catch my eye, turning simple
"Present! Add more fish to my lake!"
quest from the king to a journey of 15 hours because I got distracted helping a small town I stumbled into or accidentally opened a portal to a different continent. I did not have that explorer spirit in 76. I already had to fast travel to events if I wished to get there in time, and most of the main quests required me to travel 1/3 of the map, interact with an item, and then return, so it just made more sense to teleport than run. Early on the side quests did keep gameplay less monotonous for me. There's 7 side quests with a story in the main game, Order of Mysteries being a longer chain and 4 more added in the Wastelanders. Unsolved cases being set of short explore this location quests that I count as one, and Lying Low being my favorite questline of all, including multiple chains and ending with a boss fight. Sadly, I had completed all of them by the time I was done with the raider portion of the main story. This was also the point when I started to feel that the story felt unnecessarily stretched. Having an item you need being conveniently behind a robot who needs you to do a set of quests so you can gain said item feels thin and sounds lazy. More so when the robot mentions after all that the half of the quests were never needed, but only to amuse her. In Fallout 76 you learn what happens after the nukes dropped. You learn that the water is radioactive and that the Scorch are bad. Later in the story you cure yourself so you don't turn into one of the green chirol guys. You meet previously mentioned Rose who tells about different raider clans that are long dead. Then you set up some Scorch detectors, find out how to launch nukes and nuke the source of the virus. Appalachia is saved, but not really since it's a multiplayer. Then comes the DLC where both new factions talk down to you, even though story-wise you are the only one with the ability of launching the remaining 2 nukes. The story in the DLC revolves around this heist on Vault 79, which is storing enough gold to be used as a basis to rebuild the USA and its economy. You rally up either the settlers or raiders for this heist and plan to clear this vault with the force of the whole faction, with promises of more gold that you know what to do with. Fast forward a few quests and it's me and one NPC who bugs out and stays passive, while I take out the vault defenses and am rewarded with a small fraction of the vault's gold because this is your new daily hub and the gold is the new currency for gear. I am not the first one to suggest this, but what if instead of showing faction tensions and events as a holotapes, papers and terminals as the stories of the past, why not have single player campaign where you live through them? From the day bombs dropped, to the day everyone died or turned into scorched. You could even side with different factions or raider groups and it would change the narration without ruining the multiplayer story, seeing as everyone's dead by that time anyway. While we are on it, why not have the Wastelander story in a single player campaign too, since the whole multiplayer seems to be on the make your own fun mode anyway? What if the vault heist would take the efforts of both factions? Neither faction agrees with one another's views nor they trust each other, but working together a deal could be made to split the gold earned 50-50. After a series of quests for both sides the heist can finally begin, but this time in full scale. Midway you have to choose your side and the plot is made to take all the gold when the other faction stops being useful to you. Then the expected happens, the faction that you don't side with sets the trap first and empties the vault while you are locked in the secure room. Campaign ends there, and now on the multiplayer side, you and your faction's job are to collect back all that gold from those traders and kill anyone with the misfortune to stand in your way.
That sometimes it doesn't just work.
It took me all 3 evenings to fill my stash with 8 items and junk. This was an issue for a person who refused to leave any items behind in multiplayer games just to spend evening farming those same items when I need them for something. Originally Bethesda had said that the stash limit is there because having an infinite box for players to stuff items would cause server issues. Players pointed out that it's true when talking about weapons with different mods and legendary effects, but not so much with something static like scrap junk. And this ended up being true because in October 2019, when Fallout 1st was launched, a $14.99 monthly sub with the selling point being a scrap box that allows you to store an infinite amount of scrap junk. An answer that solves the whole inventory management issue but shoved behind a paywall, which also conveniently includes 16.5 euros worth of game currency, which can be bought separately, just to justify the price. I have yet to use my in-game currency as I have not found anything that I want in this shop, beside a pile of junk that I will talk about later. Most of the items are silly or pristine condition items, which are 2 things I do not really care to have in my post-nuclear war game. I also don't agree with the prices for the items, at 14 euro a piece for power armor paint, 5 for backpack skin, 4 for a Pit-Boy skin, 5 for weapon skin, force bundles if you want specific items, and no discount applied to those bundles if you already own 1 or more items in said bundle. On top of that, the shop runs on rotating inventory that mainly changes weekly, giving you this "oh you should buy it now or you might not be able to get it again" marketing, which makes no logical sense with the virtual items. I've always been against in-game shops and always will be, but the way Bethesda preys on the weak just makes it all the worse. Before anyone mentions, yes, you also get items from in-game activities, but it won't make the pricing any better. Once you add real-world value to your in-game tokens, they will be judged by it. My only purchase from shop was Shadow Prime Power Armor, a power armor that keeps repeating Liberty Prime voice lines. When I bought the armor, it had promises of 2 helmet variations, one with sound effects and one without. Too bad that the helmet was not the only part of the armor that makes those voice lines. The chest piece makes them as well. The first ticket I made of this issue got deleted under 24 hours, and 2 weeks after submitting the second ticket I got answered that placing a ticket isn't the right way to go with these issues, but to fill a feedback form. A form that will be one-way communication, but they promised that it surely would be read eventually by the dev team. Then again, the advertisement did say helmet without sound effects, and that's what I got. They never implied that the rest of the armor would be quiet too. Just like the add-on shop was supposed to be a cosmetic-only shop, then the repair kits were added and they said it's fine, these are just pay-to-convenience items, we would never sell a pay-to-advance in our shop. Until in the future patch when you can complete seasons by playing the game or by paying. Many a true nerd has made in-depth video about history of the add-on shop, which is very interesting indeed, and you can find link to it in the description.
But this one really is unique.
Planning your first build feels overwhelming in the beginning. There are 210 cards costing different amount of perk points that you have 56 at the level cap of 50. Build combinations feels unlimited. Until you find that 9 points are spent to your chosen weapon type, and everyone uses mutations, so Glass Freak and Starch Jeans are must have in luck, as well Bloody Mess that gives you damage increase of 15%. Just these eat up 17 points in every build and another 10 points goes to almost as necessary perks. 76 has 4 type of cards: damage increase, carry weight increase, party buffs and crafting. Since you are alone most of the time and the game centers around killing stuff, every build is made to maximize damage. This is partly because you can switch cards freely whenever you want. Why have a master crafter in your contact list who can repair weapons or add high level mods to them if you can do it by yourself? Why wait in if it's worth to get hacking, lockpicking or other non-combat cards to your build if you have instant access to them all the time? Biggest missed opportunity apart from explosive boys is the support builds. There are enough cards to make a non-combat build with an idea to buff, heal and repair party members' gear. But in the party size of 4, one more DPS adds more value to the group than support would. And even if there were larger group sizes like 15, there is no content where a build like that is needed. And even if there were such content, there are no servers or guild system, so you would have to play with random players, and we all know how well something simple as Radiation Rumble go with random players. Random players who you cannot communicate with. Lack of something so simple and basic as text chat is just something that I can't wrap my head around, and I believe the reason why it's not there might be A. Console players would have hard time using it, and Bethesda would not spend time on something only PC players would benefit from, or B. Someone might call you bitch. Reason A makes no sense since console players already have text chat in form of PMs. You can't talk server-wide, but you can open other players' profile and send them a message. This means that console players are already shown to be willing to type messages, but also have ability to call each other's.
Harden the fuck up, you soft cunt. Stop.
If the reason is B, then just give us the server chat and whisper function in game, but let other players toggle it off. Just like they can toggle off the voice chat. As a Finn, I do not talk in lines, bus stops, waiting rooms or pretty much anywhere, so I definitely won't be talking out loud with random players in online games. And when it comes to 76, I disabled voice chat a long time ago, so I can't even hear other players. Because when I did have the voice chat on, it was filled with people using voice activation instead of push to talk. So the whole zone would hear sounds like background TV, breathing, coughing, vacuum cleaner, mom, car passing, window, kids and that one guy who thinks it's funny to play music to other players not by directing output channel to input channel but by placing their microphone next to a speaker. Or when people would have conversations between themselves and I could hear it like they were next to me in my camp 150 yards away. Turning the whole thing off was easier job than always finding that matching name in the recent list and muting them. This, and the low server population, meant that I never felt like I was playing with other players, apart when I played with my friends in call. Every time I logged in there were 24 to 32 faceless players in the map.
4 times the size of Fallout 4.
I maybe see 5 of them, or maybe I see no one. When I do see them, there is no means or reasons to connect with them. While the reason is that server can barely handle 10 people in the same location, Todd said that the Wastelander is empty because
it's the apocalypse, it's not an amusement park, okay?
But there were 500 people living in the Vault 76. 500 peoples that were some of the America's finest. Am I supposed to tell myself that 470 of them just died, and that is why I can never meet anyone? Lack of rebindable keys has always been pain with Bethesda's games, and fixed with mods. However, we lack them in this one. Luckily my mouse and keyboard allows any key to be bound to anything. So instead of binding inventory and map to 4 and 5, I change 4 to I and 5 to M. But this should not be the case with game studio of this size. Issues happen too when things are bound to the same key, like reloading, lowering and raising gun, and trading with the robots are all bound to R, or player trading, scrapping and jumping to spacebar. It's this weird mentality that game companies have, that even though keyboard has more than enough keys to bind every action to different button if wanted, and even though my mouse alone can have
76. Had to do it.
actions bound to using shift, control and alt modifiers, because controllers have 8 buttons and a D-pad, that's all we can have. Another issue with you can't even see the server is that you can't choose between PvP or PvE servers, and the servers have been made for both player types, making one group suffer. What Todd had planned was essentially a duel system instead of PvP, and has been explained too many times, but it's just so weird that I need to go over it one more time. Normally in multiplayer games, PvP happens in 2 ways. Either players meet, fight, other side dies and possible spoils are looted, or one player challenges another player duel, which won't result to a death. Rules of allowed buffs, cooldowns and healing items are discussed in the text chat. Fight happens, GG. In Fallout these 2 modes are cramped together. Players meet and whoever shoots other first does no damage but flags himself for PvP. Now the player who has gotten shot has a huge advance because their first shot will do full damage to the flagged one, while the flagged one can't do any damage until they are shot back. After fight, winner gets to loot other players' junk items. You know that junk that their stash is already full because screw $14.99 and vendors have 1400 cap daily limit. I don't miss trying to find the corpse of a legendary enemy after it died in the middle of the grass field or exploded into the orbit. Or while wondering if I even did enough damage to it to get any loot, since you have to tag it even if your party member kills it. Having a simple sparkle effect on corpses with loot would go a long way to reduce time staring piles of corpses to make sure you looted each one of them or finding that one legendary enemy. Talking about legendary items, the sheer amount of RNG when it comes to them is so high that it's no wonder people have found unintended ways to achieve their best in slot gear. There aren't any power armor legendary parts, so only thing I needed was a weapon. I aimed my sight on nothing less than 50 cal machine gun with furious and explosive effects on it. There are 3 ways to get hold on such weapon. You can buy it from another player, loot it from legendary enemies, or destroy legendary items for scrap that you trade for mystery boxes. If I bought heavy weapon mystery box, it could contain one of these weapons: 50 cal machine gun, broadslider, flamer, gatling gun, harpoon gun, light machine gun or minigun, with one effect from both pools of 22 prefix modifiers and
7
major modifiers. Rolling my dream weapon with my maybe wrong calculations ends up showing 0.07% chance per box. I would maybe never see my dream weapon, but at least each box would contain a heavy weapon that I could use. But heavy weapon boxes are only in my imagination, and instead you can only choose between melee and range weapon boxes. So while I wouldn't get any access from my box, it could contain pistols, rifles, shotguns, energy or explosive weapons on top of my heavy weapons. Instead of pool of 7 weapons, it's around 44 depending if you have acquired any plans or not, making the chance for the dream weapon to be 0.01%. On top of all of this, you can get only measly 150 scraps per day by breaking down legendary items to begin with. This being one of many daily limits imposed by Bethesda to tempt people to log in every day for 30 minutes or so, or you will miss out on progress. With the Wastelanders update, you now have the option to turn new reputation weapons to legendaries, thus removing the chance of getting the right weapon. Playing a lottery with only prefix and major modifiers, your chance of getting the right one is now 0.5%. But if you have chance to trade with another player for an item of your dreams, that's a whole other issue. Every trade system I know works the same way. Both sides add items they want to the trade table, and then both confirm that this is what they want to trade. If either party changes the offer in any way, both parties have to again agree to these new terms. This is just to avoid scamming. Most of the high value trades in Fallout aren't bought with caps, but trade with another goods, and there comes the problem. For some reason Fallout doesn't use any kind of confirmation window. You can set the cap price for your items, but as I said, most of the items are traded to other items, and whoever puts them on the table first for free is setting themselves up to be robbed. Since the other player can just take the items for free and then cancel the trade window without any confirmation.
And in this one, you can build wherever you want.
Two features that look in any multiplayer games are the housing and how the trading of goods work. Some games have an auction house and others a rented vendor in major cities or one that you can place in your home. Fallout tried to do the latter. Since you don't choose which server to play on and your camp disappears when you log out, so does your vending machine, making the chance of the right customer finding your shop to be very small in already low population servers. The other issue was that items in your vending machine still takes up room in your stash, while in other games they would be out of your inventory and in an auction house or mailbox or handled with a specific object. But something so much data server stability $14.99. So to have a functional trade post I had to buy a second account. The free game that I got from a friend has now turned into me paying a monthly fee for a one account to keep my inventory in check and buying another account for all the items I wish to sell. If I slept on a bed with my alt account, it would stay online for about 40 minutes AFK, and every 2 hours or so I would change servers so another 30 people could have access to my shop. Even with this setup I had two issues. Firstly, the game won't keep a log of what prices you sold items. You get a notification when the item sells, but you have no way to access this information after that brief moment. Secondly, the money won't go to any typical container or mailbox, but straight to your character that has 30,000 cap limit, and any currency over that is just lost forever. Building my two stores next to each other managed to be an issue itself. You aren't allowed to build near most of the pre-existing buildings, which is understandable in places where you could block players from completing quests and whatnot. But a small building middle of nowhere can mark a huge non-building zone, just like other camps can, which is almost 100 yards between centers of two camps. I can't build my two camps next to each others, and I can't mark one camp as owned by both accounts, giving it higher budget and limits. Instead I had to find a place where both of my camps would be close to pre-existing buildings where buyers would walk by often but not too close. Also they can't be near each other's, and hopefully in a place where other players' camps won't be near either of my camps, so I can log into the server with both of my accounts. My main account had all the plans, so building secondary part of the shop had no issues. But he would also be in charge of building the main part that the alt would keep online. As a party member you can add items and remove those items from friend's camp in that session, but since there is no co-ownership of any kind you can't remove any other items. My building sessions would last few evenings while I slowly do my build and demolish rotation, which meant at the start of each evening I would have parts that I would be unable to access without tearing it first down with my alt. This being Fallout 76 could start chain reaction of cannot remove item, part of the structure would not be accessible, even when it's clear it wasn't an issue. Pair that with the fact that Fallout 76 is prone to crash the desktop without warning while playing with one client, not to mention with two. I like how they imported those non-functional shelves from the Fallout 4, but didn't import the power armor's displays or armor racks. Or how they failed to add any kind of safety mechanism to power switches. They added this thing with a code lock on it, but you can switch power on and off without accessing it. It's annoying, but you could always just delete the power line from the vending machines when you are close to the cap limit. But the machines still work even without the power, and the power is only needed to display the machines in the map. You could also put them behind garage door, but what's the point when you can glitch yourself through doors in this game? Sometimes you even have to pay for broken camp items, like the Red Rocket garage door that looked different than advertised. After complaints the pictures were taken off the shop and later the door was moved to the misc section of the camp menu, making it impossible to be removed without demolishing the whole camp and making it also non-placeable anymore. Or what about the water wheel that didn't produce any electricity and just spun around, until the next batch when it stopped spinning completely.
I read on the internet that our games have had a few bugs.
Bethesda's bugs are so plentiful and so persistent from one game to another, with the modding community fixing them, that it feels like Bethesda feels like they can get away with anything. In single players, I could suspect but never be sure if the bug or crash was caused by the game or by one of my multiple mods. If 76 has taught me anything, it's that it wasn't the mods making my game crash. There was headless enemies, undying enemies, frozen enemies, non-animated enemies, friendly enemies, white spring robots dying by themselves, floating items and terrain, audio fading in and out, crackling audio, audio delay, turrets shooting each other, crafting station failing to load, sun flare shining through terrain, trade option not appearing, trade cancelling by itself, crash to desktop, infinite loading screens, cannot connect to a server, can't place camp on this server even though there is nothing there, can't place camp items on green, can't delete camp items because structure would not be accessible, camp items jumping upstairs when placed, crafting lock on friends camp, DCs them and roll back their camp, spawning inside foundation of camps, fast travel not working, transferring/selling items too quick from one tab causes items from other tabs to be selected, raining corpses, Gatling gun shooting as fast as you spam mouse button in third person, vending machines allowing you to dupe items and buy anything from other players' stash. From this list only the Gatling gun and vending machines were quickly fixed, while other issues have been there ever since 76 launched. Another amusing look at the engine state was when Bethesda fixed the vending machine the first time. It took a matter of hours before a new way of duping was found, and some say that the vending machines aren't safe even today. While the game is not in the same state it was when it launched, it's also noteworthy that the game is now over 1.5 years old and will never be properly fixed without the help of the great modding community. Sadly, I don't see Fallout becoming moddable, since if you can download mods from Nexus, who's gonna buy that new camo paint for power armor for that juicy 14 euros?
Millions of you watching online, we can't thank you enough.
Steam has logged 220 hours played in my main account. From that I've easily spent 50 hours building camps and no idea how much tapped out to keep my secondary shop open. Someone could argue that I love the game because I have so many hours in it, but then again, I am extremely goal-oriented and I don't value my time properly. I definitely had fun along the way, but I could argue it's because I was playing with my old friend and choice of the game had little to no effect. I believe we could watch paint dry and have an equally pleasant time together. I have finished Fallout 76. The story has been concluded and my build has been completed. Just like in other online games, I have no interest to continue logging daily for hours to get my bullion, reputation, gaps, scraps and future season progress and then log out. The leveling experience is dry even the first time, so it won't spark my usual alcoholic instinct of making one of each class, and there is no endgame to gear up or progress with a guild. All wasn't as grim and awful as I expected. I will remember with warmth those beautiful lit landscapes even if they didn't have 16 times the detail. I have plenty of pictures of approaching storms and mushroom clouds in the distance, which I never got bored of watching, and having a screenshot as a loading screen background has to be one of the best features in Fallout 76. Ambient music and sounds never felt repetitive or failed to immerse me in the mood of the game. There never were these long silent moments without music like Bethesda single player games have, and I never felt like I should play some of my own music. Where Fallout games definitely shine is environmental storytelling. Almost every skeleton tells a silent story with its surroundings about past and desperate moments after the bombs fell. With Fallout 76, holotapes became a big part of those stories too, and some of them will stay in my mind for some time. These were the things that made aimlessly exploring map worth it, while nothing else really did.
It's been a few hours. I can hear them clawing at the door. I've locked myself in a storage closet, but I don't think the door opens from the inside. It's okay. Everything is okay. Acute stress reaction. Panic and emotional distress. Breathe. Breathe. I would guess it's been 24 hours since the attack. The sound of combat is stopped. They're still outside. I have roughly 8 to 10 weeks. Provided source of fluids. Starvation onset within 10 days. Effects of psychological shock are ongoing, but repressed. I can worry about PTSD later. I believe it's been 3 days. 3 nights. Adrenaline has dissipated. I'm so thirsty. I'm so hungry. I still can't unlock the door. Must conserve strength. Using energy to bang on the door or yell has proven wasteful. A source of fluid nourishment has not been found.